Welcome to Unfiltered and Unstoppable with Rob Rumsberg. Real strategies for real advisors, a podcast that dives into what it takes to scale a thriving financial practice. Each week, we'll discuss actionable strategies, tools, and insights to keep you ahead in today's financial landscape. From innovative products and powerful marketing tactics, you'll get unfiltered truth and unstoppable strategies. Let's get started by building your unstoppable financial practice today.
All right. So welcome back to Unfiltered and Unstoppable, where we bring real strategies for real advisors. Today, we will be diving into metrics, specifically that metrics that matter most in your business and how to use them to be able to make smart, impactful decisions. And joining me today is Mr. Joe Hendrickson, whose expertise and focus is metrics. Joe, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, man. So let's dive in right in here. So your title with Gradient is officially Chief Innovation Officer. What the heck does that even mean?
Yeah, it sounds made up, doesn't it? If we look at what I'm responsible for, right, what the Chief Innovation Officer does at Gradient, it ties into a lot of different parts of our business and a lot of places that Gradient has been really on the leading edge for a long time, right? Gradient has always been on the leading edge of the intersection of sales and marketing systems and technology. And so a lot of what I'm responsible for is building, enhancing, growing the technology platform that serves our advisors. But innovation is bigger than just technology, right? Technology for the sake of technology can be really cool and exciting, but if it doesn't make any difference to your business on a daily basis, it doesn't really matter, right?
Totally.
So all the cool tech gadgets in the world, and look, that's cool. I like playing with that stuff too. But if we can't implement it in a way that drives value for our advisors, for our financial service professionals, we're wasting our money, we're wasting our time. One of the things that Chuck Lucius talks about all the time is the importance of implementation with innovation. It's not just science projects sitting in conference rooms. It's all about implementation and making it actionable. And that scope can be pretty broad. When we look at, my background, working with one of the largest companies in the world for a long time, which can be really insightful. We make some really big investments. We measure the heck out of everything and evaluate all of our business cases. And there's a finance lens and a product lens and a sales and marketing lens. Being able to take some of that rigor and some of that process, but take it out of that structure that is so slow and so corporate and so exhausting to try and do anything, and bring it into a firm like Gradient where we can move fast, we're agile, we're nimble, we're not afraid of making investments and taking on new challenges. It's really a lot of fun.
That's one of the things that I love about Chuck and Tammy is they, quite frankly, do not like the corporate structure at all in that regard. Meaning, like the last thing that we can be is this big Titanic to where you don't move if at all. More than anything, they want us to be quick and nimble.
That's right.
And as you said earlier, more importantly, not just quick and nimble, but with an impact. If you don't mind, just give us a little 20-second commercial about your background and your expertise, if you will.
Yeah, I've got a weird path, Rob. So I took the natural path after high school of not going to college and moving out west to be a competitive freestyle skier, and then the really seamless transition into being in the field as a financial services professional for 8 years, which I really enjoyed and I had some success at. And for me, I was a solo practice person and I got tired of not being a part of a team, and I didn't have the tools then that Gradient makes available now to really build and scale my own team. So I decided to go back to school at that point and get a finance degree and joined one of the 50 largest companies in the world in Allianz, and spent 13 years there in different roles in distribution and strategy over that time, and really got to cover everything from, working on products for new markets to making our sales team more effective. So building out a major CRM instance and being able to focus on empowering our teams, to the evaluation and implementation of different advisor tech solutions that we can integrate to make our business lives better. So I really enjoy having the ability to take on a range of different projects, right? One of the things that gets hard at a big company like that is the longer you're there, the more you get stuck in a silo and you're the guy that just does this thing, which made me crazy. So I'm so thrilled to be at Gradient, where, one of the first things the Lucius family said is, we want you to think about the whole business, not just a silo. This is the way we approach what we do here. So I've been here for about 7 months now, and really having an opportunity to touch different lines of business, and now really leaning hard into some things that we're doing practice management side from the Catalyst team, as well as on the technology side, what we're doing with some major enhancements to our platform.
I love it, man. You've been here long enough now to where the Gradient training wheels are off, so to speak, and you are making a just a fantastic impact across the board. So we definitely appreciate it. Let's move forward here. So let's start with the basics in regards to metrics. So why do metrics matter specifically to a independent financial advisor like you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, if you think about what metrics are, right, they're a way of trying to take data and make it actionable. People talk about how valuable data is, and I always call BS on that. Data by itself is not that valuable. The world is awash in data. You can be overwhelmed by data in no time from a million different sources online, right? What matters is the ability to turn that data into actionable information. What can I do with this data? What decisions can I make as a leader, as an advisor, as a marketer, as a salesperson based on this information? And metrics are a very good way of transforming data into actionable information. And what they really do is give us things that we can compare to, right? So if we just look at a piece of data. I had 7 new client appointments this week. Well, Rob, is that good or bad?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Well, how does that compare to last week? How does
yeah,
that compare to your 12-week
yeah,
average? How does that compare to last year? What stage of your business are you? How does that
yeah,
compare to your peers?
yeah.
By being able to measure those things in a consistent way, we can compare it to ourselves over time, right? Our business as it grows, as it goes through different business cycles. Are we trending in a good direction? Is there a trend that we should be concerned about? And we can use it to benchmark ourselves either against industry data or data on our peers, things like Gradient can help you benchmark. So metrics are a way, it's really a way of turning data into an understandable language for all of us. And for the independent FSP, like I talked about what I didn't have, um, being able to scale your business changes the lens, right? You have to go from thinking about it as the principal doer that is doing all of the things to taking an executive lens on your business, right? Now you're hiring staff, you're delegating work. Well, how do you know it's getting done? How do you know it's getting right? How do you know that you're going to get effective return on investment with those things? Being able to measure the outcomes that you want, right? Define the outcomes and then measure to see if you're attaining them, so that you can course correct if you're not, so that you can celebrate successes if you are, so that you can invest and double down where you're really winning. Being able to use metrics that matter and define those for your practice gives you the tools as an executive to think about your business in a way that doesn't involve standing and looking over the shoulder of everybody, doesn't involve always making gut feel decisions. Now, I'm not saying you don't need to directly supervise. Sometimes you still do. I'm not saying you don't need to make gut feel decisions. If you've been successful enough to get to this point, you've got good gut feel. Don't go away from that. But this is a way to supplement it so that you actually get some of your time back and can focus where you want to focus your time, client facing leadership activities.
So what I'm hearing then, it's specifically about being intentional with what you measure. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, you can create metrics for almost anything. Trust me, I worked at a big German insurance company. Like you can metric the death out of things.
Yeah.
And it is important not to go overkill. Like keep it clean and focused. What do you really want to accomplish in your business? And then back into a couple of metrics that help drive that. And the beauty of it for all of your listeners is that we have a really good depth of experience on how to measure different things within the sales cycle and operational processes for our industry. So you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right. Right. All right. So let's break down these key metrics a little further. So give us some ideas of what are the key metrics that a advisor should focus on each stage of their business cycle.
Sure. If we just take it in like a classic marketing funnel, right? We start from the top, we're generating awareness and we're creating leads, right? So whether that is seminar marketing, whether that's radio and TV, whether that's direct mail, social, any number of different avenues that you're using, being able to track some of those high level metrics of the engagement that you're getting. And tracking the engagement is important, right? How many people did we have show up for the seminar? How many people did we have respond to an ad that we placed? And it is important, I think, to define activity metrics and outcome metrics. An activity metric might be how many seminars did we have, right? That's great. That's good to be measuring that. But what's even more important is the outcome. How many people showed up to those seminars? How many people that showed up booked a first appointment? Of those people that showed up and booked appointments, how many of them eventually became clients? So being able to kind of track things through the funnel becomes important. When I think about prospecting, the real meat and potatoes metric when we're talking about prospecting is really how many new clients did you see, right? And time bound it per week, per month, run it against an average, being able to be looking at how many new clients. Now you right, you're servicing your existing clients, you're continuing to work through the funnel, but if you're not continuing to fill it up at the top all of the time, people have a tendency to um, have a big bulk of leads that come through from a seminar, from some activities, and then work those all the way through and lose track of continuing to fill up the top of the funnel. And then you wind up getting those things closed and you go back and you got to rebuild that momentum. Keeping momentum going is really important as you scale. You can't have those downtimes. So being able to stay focused on, did I see enough new people this week? Um, I think you told me a story once about somebody you were working with in that particular metric, didn't you?
I was literally just getting ready to dive in that's fantastic. So very successful firm. This is a firm that has had great wisdom and expertise and really knows what they're doing. I think sometimes what can happen with great success, you can find yourself maybe relaxing and maybe not focusing on the small things. And we started to dive into our business health assessment, which we might touch on here in a little bit. And what one of the key metrics that they focus on in the business health assessment is how many first appointments are you having per month? And this particular advisor, thinking about his business and the success, he's like, oh, we have 20 a month or whatever the number is. He thinks it's a big number. And when they actually break it down, and keep in mind, he's got a number of employees and a number of other sales associates affiliated with the firm. When he found out that they were only having 4 first appointments per month, his mind, I mean,
Yeah.
he could not have been more shocked. Um, and and like I said, sometimes with success, we kind of take our foot off the gas a little bit. We're maybe not tracking everything that we used to track in the early days. Well, that this was February of 24 when he made that discovery. And since then, we have seen significant changes and implementation in his overall structure. And we've seen the production start to creep back up again very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it really highlights the importance of having a lens on those metrics. Because what happens in a busy practice, the tyranny of the urgent takes over. There's always something that wants your attention, right? And if you don't ground yourself back to here's where I need to go, the tyranny of the urgent will take over every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. So we got to make sure we're tracking how many leads we have, where they're coming from, how many we're converting into appointments. That way, I mean, also so we know which particular marketing channels are actually working. Like that's important as well, right?
It is, and really, Rob, it's not just the channels, but the spend, right?
Yeah.
We should always be measuring what kind of bang we're getting for our buck, right? When we're measuring return on investment, hey, if we're getting a volume of leads from an effort, but it was a really expensive effort, and we've got a lower volume of leads from a cheaper effort, well, maybe they stack out to the same in terms of dollar per lead. So it's important to segment those things. I also think that when we talk about that sort of, you know, how many leads that we get if we're going, leads per activity or per channel or dollars per lead, it's really important to add the term qualified lead, right? Having somebody that signs up for an appointment but then doesn't keep it, well, was that really a quality lead? Now, maybe that's part of your process. And I love tracking the percentage of kept appointments, right? For people that
Sure.
booked, how many of them showed up. It tells you something about the quality of the lead, but it also tells you something about your follow-up and appointment setting process. If people are scheduling, but then not coming through, did you not articulate the value of the appointment well enough? Did you not have a good follow-up process, reminding them of the meeting, giving them directions to the office, all of the things they need? So being able to track through those things on the volume that you're getting, but also the quality that you're getting, and then ultimately tie that back to the dollars that go into it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've gotten a good quality lead, and we've done a good job of converting them into an appointment. Now let's get into the fact and feeling part of metrics, meaning during the stage, what are we tracking here in regards to how we're getting to a second appointment, or gauging even the quality of data that we're getting from the prospect. Where do metrics come into play with fact and feeling finding?
Yeah, I think it's when we talk about fact and feeling finding, there's a couple of important things we want to accomplish that, right? We said in the beginning we want to tie to outcomes. Well, what's the outcome we want out of this stage? We want to do a few things, right? We want to gather the information that we need about this prospect to be able to determine if we're going to be able to help them. If this is somebody that is 35 and all of their assets are in their 401k plan, hey, great that they're interested, and maybe we want to keep them on a drip list, but there's probably not a lot that we can do for them right now in terms of providing advice that's going to help them with their financial lives. So we're gathering that information. So being able to look at sort of a completion rate of fact finding is a nice way of looking at that. But I think even more importantly, we want to take the opportunity as we're doing fact and feeling finding, right? We are learning about them. We're learning about their hopes and dreams and their goals. We are learning about their finances. But we're also sharing with them about us, right? We need to create anticipation for that next appointment. So being able to track in the fact and feeling stage with those first appointments, the number of those that schedule and keep a second appointment becomes really important. And then whether we gathered enough information to actually successfully execute that second appointment, right? If they schedule the second appointment and we keep that appointment, but we actually didn't get the fact and feeling gathering done, we can't accomplish a lot in that second appointment. Now we're just wasting our time. And we might be meeting with a client that doesn't actually want to do anything other than spend time talking to us. And we are, I don't think most of the people listening to this podcast want to spend their time being a social resource for potential prospects, right?
Right.
We want to be able to help them with their financial life. So if we're not gathering enough information to do that, either we didn't build enough rapport, or didn't build enough trust, or didn't articulate the value of what we can do. Rather than try and measure rapport, all we got to measure is, were we able to get the information that we needed from them to go forward, and did they agree to go forward to the next meeting?
Yeah, so last month, this just speaks so perfectly to a podcast I had with Mr. Jew today, and we were talking about the psychology of sales. And one of the things that we know in today's environment specifically, people just can absolutely immediately tell when they're being sold, as opposed to if someone's actually there with their heart looking to actually help. And you were talking about the feeling part of it,
Yeah.
and that is a huge part of information gathering. And as you said as well, it ensures that we are tailoring the recommendations effectively, right? So some of the data you might be looking at is, well, this appointment process for this particular client was 7, 8 appointments, and I have no idea why. I gave them my best pitch. Well, we probably weren't doing a very good job of feeling finding,
Yeah.
and that just, those are all things that we can help with, and kind of along with those regards, taking a look at metrics in regards to implementation and implementation of plans, looking at turnaround times, how quickly are plans being delivered, executed, get into the metrics of implementation, if you would.
Yeah, I will. And Rob, I'll even lead into that with strategy and then into implementation, right?
Yeah.
Because that strategy presentation, we've done the fact and feeling finding, we've gathered all the information, we're presenting a plan. Now, this is where people typically talk about things like close rate, right? Did the client go forward? And that's really important. But I think it's also like, it's a place where we can look at more than just close rate, right? It's not necessarily a binary choice. We can look at wallet share. Maybe we made recommendations for $400,000 worth of their assets, and they decided to go forward with one of those products with a $100,000. Well, we can mark that as a close rate, right? We won a piece of business, and that's great. But we left three quarters on the table of what we proposed, right? So being able to track how well we set up that holistic plan and how much we closed becomes really important. And you can get granular and do that by line of business too, which really brings you into implementation. And this gets less into um, sales and marketing and how well we're engaging with our clients, and more into how efficiently do our processes run. And looking at things like, you know, volume things. We talked about activity, the volume of applications submitted, and we can look at that in count or dollars, and those are helpful. But we're also interested in the outcomes, right? What percentage of those were in good order? How much time are you and your staff going to spend chasing things around because they weren't right the first time? It's a great metric for helping hold your staff and yourself accountable for quality business up front. Taking the time to do that makes everybody's life easier. And ultimately, it's going to make the client happier too, right? They don't want to be chasing them around for
Yeah.
signatures for those things.
Right. Exactly. And this all relates perfectly well in regards to ongoing relationships.
Yes.
And we talk about client retention metrics, cross-selling opportunities. We need to make sure that we're tracking how often we are connecting with our current client base, uh, taking a look at percentages of how a client is engaging with any of our additional services or additional touches, and also overall satisfaction scores as well, right?
Yeah, it becomes really important, especially I think more and more of your listeners have a portion of their business that is advisory in nature, right? And so retention becomes incredibly important with those clients, and we have to continue to add value. So looking at, how often are we touching them and how are they responding to those things? And that always gets weird when I say, how often are we touching them? How
Yeah, I
often
love- yeah,
are our activities, whether it's a phone call, whether it's inviting them to a client event, whether it is, a holiday gift or a postcard, being able to map out and very intentionally focus on how many times throughout the year we're going to connect with them and why, and which clients. And this is, I'll get on a soapbox really briefly on the importance of scoring your clients, of segmentation. And segmentation can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but if you keep it really simple, what segmentation means is this is helping us define who we should engage and how. And so being able to say, okay, for the clients that we see as really high touch clients where there's a lot of opportunity, well, man, we better be we better have a contact every 4 to 6 weeks. And maybe it's just a touch base, maybe it's just we sent them a postcard, but making sure we're staying front of mind with those clients. Other thing I like to look at when we look at ongoing relationships, right? Retention rate, how many clients stayed are really nice. How many clients gave you a referral?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about a powerful ongoing relationship metric. If you have been so successful with that client that they said to a friend or a family member, hey, you know what? You should really work with my person. They are great. Here's their contact information. I'm going to have them call you. Like, that's a great metric to be tracking and tracking it over time. We've certainly seen people that have transitioned over the years from, constantly being out in, delivering seminars or other marketing activities to some that really are able to run a very successful business almost exclusively on referrals from their existing client base.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also a great temperature gauge on how you're actually doing it as a firm as well,
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
if I haven't seen a referral in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, all of a sudden I should be thinking something's not right. Like we are missing something. You had touched on briefly just a little bit ago about accountability.
Mhm.
So data isn't just about processes, right? It's also about accountability as well. So how can we use and monitor metrics to help with not just team accountability, but also individual accountability as well?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things with accountability is transparency and visibility. People have to understand what they are responsible for. Even if it's ourselves, we have to set our own goals that we're going to hold ourselves accountable for, and then having visible tracking on that. So one of the things that we're doing a lot of work with now are some major enhancements to our virtual advisor CRM system to make it easier and more transparent to track those outcomes, right? If it is, this was assigned, here was the due date, was it completed? But being able to roll that up into a quick visual, right? To be able to track ourselves and our outcomes. And I love, like, there's the old saying, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. You've probably seen that. That's old Harvard Business School stuff.
Yeah.
And that's true, but I would also add to that, just because you're measuring it does not mean you're managing it. So being able to have structure around how you're going to use these metrics in your practice, how they're going to be visible to your team and to yourself, how you're going to celebrate the wins, and how you're going to course correct when you're not achieving the goals. That's a really important thing. And I think visibility and transparency go a long ways towards accomplishing those things.
And one other thing, I've had a opportunity over the years to go to I don't know how many financial advisors' offices, and we help with managing staff and hiring staff and all of that. And no matter where you're at, but performance reviews are just difficult, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Everything that you just mentioned really takes the guesswork out of performance reviews, right?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
becomes, here's how we're going to set your goals at the beginning of the year. Here's how we're going together track that you're achieving those goals, those job responsibilities, right? And then how we're going to evaluate it so that when we do that end of the year, we've got it all in front of us. And frankly, they know if they're getting a good review or if they're not getting a good review. There's no guesswork in it. We've made it clear and we've provided transparency to how they're tracking towards those goals every day, every week, every month throughout the year.
hmm you've mentioned a couple of different times outcomes. How what how actually what does it mean to become an outcome driven organization? And then more importantly, how does an advisor get there?
Yeah, it is, fundamentally being an outcome-driven organization really means that what we're benchmarking ourselves to, what we're setting as our goals are not the inputs in the machine, they're the outputs, right? So when we think about, for example, when we were talking about prospecting, right? Being able to say, all right, how many ads did we run? Well, that's an activity metric, not an outcome metric. How many new leads did we generate by our ad spend? Or how many leads per dollar of ad spend did we generate? That's an outcome driven metric.
Mhm.
And so becoming an outcome driven organization, it's not just a binary, I'm an outcome driven organization or I'm not, right? It's a progression. And I would guess that everybody listening to this is in some ways an outcome driven organization, right? Because revenue is an outcome of the work that we do. And if you're not generating revenue, you're not in the business and you're not listening to this. So there's some element of outcome driven that exists in your businesses, but being intentional about saying what we are going to measure are not just the activities, the tasks completed, but we're going to get at what came from that. And that comes back to why we were doing it in the first place. What were we trying to accomplish?
Don't just do it just to do it, right? Like
Right.
like activity is one thing, like you just said, but we have to have results focused thinking. Like
It
it's
is, and one of the things that I think that that I see people struggle with, right? That have gone from being, a top producing advisor in their own right to building an organization is they understand the why. They understand the outcome that they're driving towards. So they know it inside and out. It's the last thing they think about before they go to bed and the first thing they think about when they wake up in the morning, right? Their staff doesn't necessarily understand that. So being able to use, kind of outcome driven metrics and that mentality in staff meetings and goal setting, it helps translate down to the people on your team the why of what
yeah,
we're doing, what
yeah,
we're trying to accomplish. And they need to understand that to really be effective.
yeah. As opposed to great job, we did all of the dials, we did all of the phone calls. It's more okay, what was the outcome as you just said? What are the appointments? What is the revenue generated? But how we get there is setting very clear goals,
Yep.
making sure the metrics are aligned within those goals, and then, much more importantly, making sure that we are reviewing them on a regular basis. The ultimate sin there is we just throw out these goals and then, hey, we'll meet again next year on it. Like,
Yep. That sounds like my budget at home.
right? 100%. 100%, 100%. So, let's let's find out a little bit how does Gradient, maybe the Catalyst team, specifically, how do we help with all of these topics that we've discussed today?
Yeah, Catalyst is such an awesome resource for this. So there's a few key things I'll point out, right? One of the things I called out early is metrics give us something to compare to ourselves over time, but to peers. So Catalyst team can help you one, defining those metrics that matter to you. We can give you hundreds of them, but you don't want to go overkill and do that, right? That is over the top for most businesses. So what are the most important things to track and how to do that? But then by doing that, by using those consistent metrics, they can also help you review those against your own history, but then provide some peer benchmarking. Here's what others are doing and what they've seen. Here's how your close rate or your new client meeting rate compares to others. So having that sort of depth of information is really helpful. I'm not saying that you guys couldn't go out and figure out how to create the metrics that matter for your practice on your own. You totally could. What I am saying is that really the highest and best use of your time?
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
reinvent the wheel. Learn from the experience that the Catalyst team can bring, right? And be able to, and maybe you need to modify a little bit for your business, but start from that point. The other thing we talked a little bit about accountability, right? Being able to have accountability for your staff and your team, but to have accountability for yourself, to have Catalyst help hold you accountable to the goals that you're setting for your practice becomes really important. And then ultimately, not just creating the metrics, but the systems and tools, right? The meeting agendas for how we're going to share these, the tracking tools for how we're going to do this, whether it's in the CRM or in other mechanisms. Catalyst becomes a really important tool for doing those. And I'm a big believer in using those things for annual planning. It's a great time of year right now. We've got some really powerful annual planning tools and calculators to use in your business to really create that plan. Now, you're not going to plan every granular activity for the next 12 months, but plan the big rocks, plan those roles, those big goals, and then you start building out the supporting activities that lead to those things.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing overall is with the value and the expertise that the Catalyst team brings, we do the heavy lifting. Um,
Absolutely.
we will work hand in hand with the advisor to make sure to identify all of the most relevant metrics for their practice, make sure to implement the data driven processes, making sure we're optimizing the strategies for growth. But as you said, accountability the whole way through, which is huge. It really is.
Yep.
Um, Joe, time flies, man. Uh, it's about time to wrap this thing up. This has been such a valuable conversation. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I do. I will. I'll share that one of the things that I think is really important with this is metrics give you the ability to test your own assumptions. Be humble. Be willing to challenge your own assumptions. We worked with a practice that was evaluating business hours, right? And they were open early and open late, right, for clients that wanted to come before work and after work. And it was getting to be a challenge for staffing. And when we dug into the data, their appointments before 9 a.m. were the lowest quality appointments they had.
Wow.
There was almost no business coming out of those. So here they were bending over backwards, trying to staff and have things open and getting nothing out of it. And they changed their business hours and didn't take appointments before 9 anymore. I actually saw an increase in their business from doing it. So be willing to be humble and challenge your assumptions. They had come in with a mentality of we need to be accommodating and open all the time for people. And it turns out that was wrong. So you're going to have to be open to the metrics that you create telling you something that challenges your assumptions. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's how we continue to grow and get stronger and better.
Yeah, man, that's such great stuff, man. And I would say overall, the thing for everyone that's listening today, just remember, metrics only matter if you take them into action. Like, let's actually do something with the metrics. And for anyone that would love to hear or learn exactly how we do the heavy lifting for you, contact information is on the screen. Email me, call me. Joe, once again, man, I just really appreciate your time and everyone that's listening today. Until next time, make sure to stay focused and stay unstoppable. Thanks again, Joe.
Thanks, Rob. My pleasure.